Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast bringing the local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I'm Butch Theory, and I am joined today for the first time with my co-host, Captain Dusty Hayes. How are we doing today, Captain Dusty?
Good, man. How are you?
Good, man. We are also joined right this second with a familiar face. Unfortunately, I can see him, but a familiar voice as well. Joe Baya, the host of the Northwest Florida Fishing Report, and Thomas Hilton over in Texas. How we doing, guys?
Good to be back.
We're just going to talk to Mr. Thomas Hilton with Realtime, Navigator, Hilton's offshore charts, and kind of get a rundown of what's going on offshore after Laura. All right, Mr. Tom, we know that Laura was a beast of a storm. We hope you guys made out over there in Texas. Hope you guys made out all right. I know it was a very eerie feeling to be that close to such a beast, but we're really interested in, what it does to the Gulf in a shakeup like this and what the Gulf looks like out there right now. Just kind of walk us through what you're looking like on your satellite images. And also I'd like to hear from you, what in past experiences, what if storms have done things like that? I know you see a pattern or something like that. So just walk us through it, man, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we're good here. Again, went into Louisiana and really demolished Cameron in that area. And so, our hopes and prayers go out to all of those people over in Louisiana.
Absolutely.
They sure take care of people all around us with their Cajun Navy. And it's just encouraging in these troubled times that we're in to see Americans stand up and come to the aid of other strangers that they have no idea who they are and use their own money and time and resources to reach out and try to rescue people that are in harm's way and so forth. So I can't say enough about the Cajun Navy and people in Louisiana.
Yes, sir.
As far as the storm, there were some people that were asking, hey, how is this going to affect the altimetry, out there off of, between the Louisiana Delta and Destin area. There's been this big persistent warm core eddy, a big clockwise rotating downwelling current that it's not the best of conditions. That we prefer to see these nutrient-rich upwelling cyclones. To answer that question, no, it didn't affect altimetry at all, really, other than this warm core eddy does seem to be dissipating somewhat, but it's still a very strong clockwise current. And as long as you're in the outer edges and in that current, you're catching fish, and especially with the rigs over there, Appomattox and Blind Faith and those areas where you got some decent current, it's really been pretty good. I think the big effect from the storm has to do more with the rain that was brought up into the mainland of America, and that is starting to come out. The Louisiana Delta, you'll see a bigger influx of dirty water, but there's still some real pretty, some cobalt blue water out at the Double Nipple and over toward Ram Powell, really the beginning of the blue. Everything inshore is either dirty or green. And really the big exciting news in the last couple of weeks were the recent deployment of the first 4 out of 8 FADs, fish attracting devices. The first 4 legal ones out of all the thousands that we all know have been deployed over the years by various people.
Yes,
I don't know what you're talking
I
about.
was amazed.
Right. Who would do that? Anglers wouldn't do that. Track fish illegally?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, and anglers are not really known for telling the truth either. I hate to say that. I'm a fisherman myself, and I lump myself in that category. But I was absolutely amazed that Alex Fogg over there in Okaloosa County was able to ramrod this through the approval process for the permitting with the Corps of Engineers. That was a huge feat because, like I said, these are the first 4 out of 8 legal FADs ever deployed in U.S. continental waters. They're surrounding the spur. It's really a cool thing. So it's where you have they come all the way to the surface with buoys, and they maintain them, and they're going to hopefully stay around somewhere between 5 to 7 years. And these will take some of the pressure, for the guys coming out of Panama City and Destin. They're not going to have to travel as far to go look for some billfish. they're catching a lot of Dorado already off of them. Reports of some big tuna. I haven't seen anything about any billfish so far. It's definitely very exciting for the Eastern Gulf. So I give kudos to all involved on getting those done. We're going to try to lead a charge over here off Texas because we don't have near the number of offshore deep water structures like you guys have over here. And we're going to try to get some justification to hopefully get approval for some fads over here as well. But there are a lot of green water inshore. Like I said, the double nipple and rampile is the beginning of your really good fishable water. There is an influx of some blended water coming in toward the squiggles, but most everything inshore, including the fads and pea green water right now.
So, Tom, I know you've fished areas, outside of the United States, continental United States, and have you had an opportunity to fish in offshore a true fad somewhere else?
Yes. Oh, yeah. The Dominican Republic, well, they call them fads. It's really just a piece of styrofoam with a palm frond hanging off the side of it, floating. The commercial guys over there put them out, and the American sport fishers go out and try to find them. And it does become a point of contention. Sometimes the commercial guys don't appreciate you catching their marlin off of these things, and sometimes they'll come in and actually, while you're fighting the fish, they'll come in with their little skiff and grab onto the line and take your fish.
That's pretty gangster right there. That's a whole new set of rules.
That happened.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was Chris Moad on the Hoodad a few years ago. They had that happen. They were down there in the DR. They were fighting a billfish, and they were wiring it. And the locals come up, snagged it, and hauled left.
Got him.
Yeah,
that's
you expect
right.
These fads to be, they're obviously not as big as a floating oil platform. Do you expect them to function in somewhat the same way? Will they hold the same amount of fish, or is it going to be a lower volume of fish? Do you have any idea what's going to happen with them?
First off, let me just give a shout out to Chris Moad and Keith Richardson with the Hoodad. Those were the guys I was fishing with over there in the DR. And I don't know if I enjoyed fishing with them. I can't decide if I enjoyed fishing with them more or just the sheer amount of Cajun food they brought with them. He had like 4 deep freezes in his condo full of Hebert, stuffed chickens, and boudin, and you name it. And it was
Those boys can fish
very,
too, though.
very well. Oh, yes.
What is it?
Absolutely.
Is it the youngest? I don't know how many sons he has. I just follow his son Caleb on Instagram, and that boy can fish.
Oh, yeah.
He set all kind of records and stuff, hasn't he?
That kid is fine, upstanding young man, and he's caught more billfish than most anybody around that I know. He's absolutely Keith has put him into that position where he's just a very accomplished bill fisherman.
That's awesome.
Now, as far as the jury's still out in terms of the volume of what these will bring, but I think the positioning on each side of the DeSoto Canyon, where the spur is positioned, I think it's a great area. There's not much around it. And when you're talking about offshore fishing, the big piece of the puzzle that you want to find is where's the food supply, where's the bait, and that's the main attraction that these will provide. Is it will immediately start attracting bait fish, and once you start getting congregations of bait fish, and the predators will be right behind them, and if the bait fish aren't leaving, the predators don't leave either. So it's got great potential, and having 8 of them. The first 4 are out now. I think they're just 6-foot diameter cylinders, about 14 foot long, that basically are just attached to a cable going to a big weight on the bottom. And they're in about, 1,200 to 2,100 foot of water. They'll kind of move around somewhat depending with what the currents are doing in those depths. They're not going to be exactly on a 6-foot position on the Gulf.
Coordinates. Yeah.
Yeah, you may have to search for them a little bit because they're going to be moving around. There's you got 2,000 foot of cable. It's not going to be sitting stationary up on the surface. It's going to be moving around somewhat. So
sure,
I feel. It's very exciting. I'm real encouraged. The introduction of some new structures, with all of the elimination of what I consider to be essential fish habitat associated with all of the thousands of oil platforms that have been removed in the last, 8 years or so. There's really no plan in place to mitigate the loss of this essential fish habitat. So this is encouraging, although a lot of people will claim that, these are fish attracting devices, that they simply attract the fish. But I do believe that anything that provides a platform for bait to promulgate and grow and produce, that it'll also help the larger pelagics, the tuna and the billfish. So that's that. I'm real, like I said, everybody, south of Destin and in that area, they're all real excited about this.
Well, Tom, I know you've got the coordinates for those fads plugged in to Hilton's Realtime Navigator, and we've talked before about the importance of understanding altimetry, chlorophyll, sea surface temperature. Before we let you go, did this storm cool off the Gulf at all? Did we see a drop in the sea surface temperatures at all?
Slightly. Anytime you get a lot of cloud cover, over large areas, the water's gonna cool off underneath them. But it's still around mid-80s. So yeah, it's a little bit cooler, which is good. I hate seeing it get up toward the 90s. It's just too hot.
Yeah,
great. But your mid-80s, it's really conducive right now.
Tom, if folks want to get online and check out Hilton's Realtime Navigator, take a look at everything you offer there. I know one of the things that's important to understand, especially when you're talking about something like these fads, is even if they're not currently in good water, maybe good water has moved through that area in the past couple of days, and that may be reason enough to go give them a look and see if they're holding any fish. Do you think those fads are going to act the same way that those oil platforms do, and even if they're not in good altimetry, still hold fish?
That's a great question, and I do believe it will, because the big assumption with altimetry is that the bait is free-flowing with the open ocean currents, and the introduction of all these deep water oil structures has been a big kink in the works on that. So if the bait's not leaving, the predators aren't leaving, and I think the same thing will hold true with these fads.
I think I agree with that.
Yeah, thanks for getting us up to date on the water conditions post-storm. I know it's been a bit of a struggle for us to get a fishing report today because not a lot of people have been able to get out yet, so that'll point them in the right direction. If folks want to go check out everything you offer online, what's the best place for them to go see what everything that you do at Hilton's Offshore Charters?
Yeah, it's hiltonsoffshore.com. Go to contact, and you'll see my cell phone on there if you have any questions. I'm here to answer. I encourage all of my subscribers to call me if you have any questions or issues. Doesn't take too many calls. It's not rocket science. I mean, even old seasoned guys, they still like to get a second opinion. It's nice to feel like you got somebody in the cockpit with you making these decisions. That's kind of a big load of responsibility. So I'm happy to try to help as best I can in that regard. And doesn't matter if you're in a 70-foot Viking or a 20-foot center console. It doesn't matter. It's just whatever I can do to help you. That's what I do.
Awesome. We appreciate you being on the shows this week, man. We'll look forward to talking to you next time. Take care over there.
Yeah. Thank y'all.
Well, guys, the offshore report's been tough to get this week. Not a lot of people have been able to fish just because of the conditions, and it looks like we're going to have some good reports coming up next week. Got a lot of guys going to fish, but we're going to use Tom's report to hopefully point some folks in the right direction. But it sounds like those fads, man, I'm really excited about that.
I think it's going to be a good thing for the fishery in general. You were asking Tom about what he thought it was going to be like as far as a little ecosystem, like a big rig. I think it's going to hold fish, man. I mean, why wouldn't it?
I think it will. I mean, you think about, we fish weather buoys a lot, and,
right. And that's
they always seem to hold some fish. They never held fish in the volume that big oil platforms do, but these are going to be bigger than the weather buoy for sure. That always seemed to hold some fish.
Agreed. It was always good for at least one good bite. Didn't know what exactly it was going to be. It could have been a white or a blue or a big old dolphin, but it was always something on there.
Or a
If it holds bait, it'll hold fish.
And that's what I think too, Dusty. Everything. I mean, pretty much anything you put out there. I mean, if it's a dang pallet out there that's 6x6, it's going to get some growth on it and some minnows and then, a little bit bigger hardtails, and then the wahoo are going to come, and then I think it's going to be kind of the same deal, and it's going to be stationary. So awesome. Well, good to have you back on for a few minutes, Joe. What you got coming up next, man?
Man, I got to get out of here. I got to go talk about what's going on in Northwest Florida. And, man, it's been a struggle over there. I got some preliminary reports from guys, and it sounds like the inshore bite's pretty slow. Not a lot of offshore reports because the weather's been so poor. So we're going to use Tom Hilton's report in the offshore position today, and hopefully that points some folks in the right direction. But I do know quite a few guys that are going to be going out tomorrow and over the weekend. So I do expect a really good, thorough offshore report as we go into next week. But that's going to be it for me, man. I got to dip out of here. You guys wrap it up. Have a good show. And I will catch you guys again sometime soon.
Sounds good, buddy. Talk to you soon. You guys have a good show, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, Captain Dusty, that's pretty cool to hear the offshore segment. Joe kind of comes over here every now and again and revisits the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. And I feel like people need to understand the impact of you co-hosting with me today. You've never done this before with me, man. Welcome to the show.
It's my first time co-hosting. I've been on plenty of times, but first time as a co-host.
First time behind the scenes, man. You get to see all the workings of it. It's not that exciting, is it?
No, it's plenty exciting. I got to see Joe's face for a second. So that was
that's
nice.
so sweet. Well, Dusty, I know you do a lot of surf fishing over there, shore thing. I know you do a lot of inshore fishing and all of that, and I can't wait to get the onshore report from you here in a minute. Again, thanks for co-hosting with me today. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's head on down to Mobile Bay, Mississippi Sound. Let's head on down to Captain Blood. What you say, Captain Richard Rutland? How we doing today, buddy?
Oh, man, if I was any better, I'd be you, Butch.
That's not true, because I just talk about fishing. You do it for a living, man.
Well, it is easy to get up and dump the boat in the water every morning, but it definitely comes with plenty of hardship,
Amen. Amen to that. Amen to that. I sweat a lot less for sure.
I know. Me and Captain Bobby's famous last words will be, "So you want to be a guide?"
Right.
Everybody wants to be a boat captain or a fishing guide, but the whole day in, day out part of it of making sure your boat's running good, that you don't have frozen up spinning reels, and you got enough line and leader and hooks and lures, and changing flat tires at 4:30 in the morning on the side of Dolphin Island Parkway.
Catching bait,
kind of things.
Yeah.
That's the real fun part. I always tell everybody the easiest part of a captain's job is from the second your customer step on the boat till they step off. It's all the other stuff that surrounds the fishing aspect of it that's tough about being a guide. Usually the fishing part's the easy part.
Oh yeah.
Hey, that's the dream job.
That's right. Everybody always.
Oh yeah.
I think the age-old adage: you want to be a captain until you got to do captain stuff.
Yeah.
What's been going on, man? What you been chasing? You been fishing?
Yeah, I've been fishing a bunch. The inshore fishing has still remained real good. I didn't fish over the weekend. I know they had that Saltwater Fanatics tournament, and sounded like had a pretty good turnout on that, but I think the weather and the conditions made the fishing a little tough. But on the back side of it, it's been really good. The speckled trout fishing has remained really good in shallow water and in deep water. And it just seems like the numbers of fish this year just absolutely blowing my mind. Just the numbers and how plentiful they are. It's just, I'm tickled to death to keep seeing that. I feel like every time I get on here, I'm talking about that, but
yeah,
just a real good feeling to have, especially going into fall here. In about the next month and a half or so, we'll start to swing into our fall pattern. And man, I can't wait to see what that brings.
Yep. Captain Dusty, the past 2 or 3 weeks, all of our guys have been over here talking about, it may have even been a month or a month and a half now, but they're all talking about bumper crops. They're seeing a ton of what we call dink speckled trout, just a ton of them in several different applications. Are you guys seeing the same thing over there on the east side?
Usually in Orange Beach this time of year, you'll have a bunch of smaller trout, and it's always going to be various places, especially the few grass flats we have left, but especially on the dock lights, there's tons of those 13 to 16-inch fish, just by the hundreds. Mm-hmm. And anywhere you can find a school of bait fish, there'll be fish following them. And if you get into a school of deep water, or I say a school of deep water, area with deep water where there's plenty of schools of bait, there'll be plenty of trout with them. The fishery over here, it doesn't compare to Mobile Bay. We have good trout numbers, and it's getting better for sure. I've noticed this year. I've seen a lot of guys catching numbers of fish too, and like I said, the dock lights is usually a telltale sign as far as what our numbers are like in the bay
general,
at a certain
right.
time. Yeah, and even if you're not catching them, you can see them. And there's usually July, August when it's really hot, especially after a big rain. A lot of fish get pushed out, whether they go to the pass or move out to the Gulf. a lot of the small ones will hang out, stay on those dock lights and chase those bait fish. So, and there's been plenty of those little guys around for sure.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, what else, Captain Richard? You been chasing any redfish, fishing off the beach? What you been doing? What you been targeting? Where you been targeting them?
So most of my speckled trout fishing, I've been having a lot of fun, not really that far away from the boat ramp. Been leaving out of the east end of Dolphin Island, and man, the past probably 5 or 6 trips, I've really stayed right around Dolphin Island Bridge. It's been really good. It's been good in the shallow water around the bridge. It's been good in like the deep water over the oyster shells and stuff like that, using slip corks and some jigs and things. Did a little bit of wade fishing late last week and had a real good trip doing that. Primarily throwing plastic and catching some nice fish on some top waters and slick lures. So that's been a lot of fun. The black fishing still been real good. I kind of felt like after those couple little storms, when we had that blow from those 2 storms that came through, we had another crop of blackfish show up. That's kind of still on fire right now. I feel like I hadn't had one negative thing to say about blackfish all year. It's been really good, really good year for them, numbers and size-wise. Hadn't really started to sniff out my ling just yet. I'm doing a little bit of looking here and there. I think Thursday and Friday, I'm definitely going to be putting my nose to the grindstone for a couple of those that should start to kick off here pretty good shortly.
Getting close.
Yep, it's getting close. It hadn't busted loose for me yet, but it should start to happen any day now. So I just kind of got to start, like I said, just keep sniffing around, making sure I'm doing my homework, don't miss something.
Hey, Richard, I got a question for you. So next week, we're supposed to have a little cooler weather coming through. And I had a friend actually asked me today, and I've caught triple tail, but I'm definitely by no caliber a triple tail fisherman, especially like you guys over there. Been a few times in Mobile Bay, but I know they're here in this hot weather. What is a little cool front? And I know it's not going to be cold, but some cooler temperatures, is that going to shy them away? Is that just, maybe not affect them at all just because it's probably not going to do enough to change anything? I mean, what's the next few weeks look at as far as your triple tail?
So I would say it's going to have a significantly cool off. And I'm talking about like the water temperatures in the mid to upper 80s right now. It's going to have to get down into like the upper 60s before I think they even start leaving. And so that's usually not till like late October into the first part of November. I know several years I've caught blackfish in November before. So most people's mindset around our area over here when fall hits is
kind of shifts,
going north and starting to fish the tidal rivers and going up into the delta and fishing that fishery, and everybody kind of forgets about the southern end of the bay where the blackfish like to live. They're definitely still around that time of year. In fact, I'm pretty sure last year, and it's either late October, the first part of November, I put my eyes on the biggest one I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't get him to eat, and it was like right at dusk, so I couldn't really see him that good. It was like I was almost in the dark trying to catch him just about.
Dang.
They definitely hang around a lot longer than you think, and then I think watching reports and chit-chatting with people down in South Louisiana, it sounds like it goes on even longer down there, to where they're almost catching ling and blackfish all the way through the month of November. And we're not real sure exactly their migration pattern or which direction they go. We satellite tagged a few ling last year with some pop-off tags, and of the ones that we tagged, we saw them show up southwest of Mobile Bay, which is down off of Louisiana, which we almost thought they'd be doing the opposite, which would be kind of chug back to the east and then go on down to South Florida. So it's hard to tell.
No doubt. What about redfish? You been targeting any of those? Been catching those incidentals or anything standing out for those?
Man, I tell you what, as far as redfish go as a whole this year, I have not seen or caught the numbers that I usually do. And I don't know why that is. The bull reds never really, they showed up for a little while out on Dixie Bar. Of course, they had kind of a different winter with 2 really, really high water incidences up in the Delta where, one time I think Barry Steam Plant got up to 14 feet, and then another time it went up to 18 feet, almost broke the record from the 80s. So it flushed the bay out really bad. I don't know if those fish went somewhere or if they just didn't spawn like they usually do, but I have not seen the numbers of bull reds or slot reds like I have seen in the past. I wouldn't say I'm worried about it, but it's definitely something I've been thinking about. If you told me I had to go catch one right now, I could do it, but they're not jumping in the boat by any means,
Right.
like they usually are for me. I tell you one thing I can tell you is, I don't keep any reds. I do catch and release on all redfish. I usually tag and release a lot more reds than I do trout every year. And looking in my tag box, you could tell I've been tagging more trout and less reds this year because I've got just a giant wad of those orange redfish tags in there, and then I'm almost out of trout tags for the year. So it's been a weird year. Hopefully the fall will bring something. The fall might bring something different, though. You never know. They could be in a different pattern, and I'm just not hitting on it. But I'm sure it'll come back around. They're very resilient fish.
Yeah, especially August, September, it seems like it was the same thing with me last year. That was about when I started tagging, and I mean, they were very plentiful August, September, and there's a pattern. Me and a few of my buddies that, good friends of mine I went to school with, that I guide with and all that, we fish the same general areas together and, alternate through them. And a couple of our normal redfish patterns have not been panning out this year like they normally do. Some of them are there, but very slow, and some of them not at all. One of our top patterns hasn't produced anything yet. In that same general area, those fish are there in the daytime and at night on the lights. And I actually had a few fish get tagged 2 nights in a row. And then my buddy caught it a third night a couple days later. And then somebody else ended up killing it a fourth time, within a 2-week span on the same stretch of docks. It seems like none of those fish are there this year. It don't matter the tide, the day, the conditions. It's what it's doing. They're not there like they have been the past few years, but things do change. So
For sure. Different years, like Richard talking about the high water, you never know. And we didn't really have a winter. It didn't cool down at all this winter. Maybe that had something to do with it too. Who knows? Could have been the temperatures and all the high water. Yep, for sure. That brings us to our Hey Cap question, talking about tagging. This week's Hey Cap was brought to us by Foster Contracting. The recent thunderstorms that have been producing wind and hail in the area may have damaged your home's roof. The certified roofing pros at Foster Contracting offer free roof inspections, and if your roof has received damage, most homeowners will not have little or no cost out of pocket when going through insurance. If you're looking for quality construction with a dependable, licensed, and certified fortified roofing professional, give the Fortified Roofing Pros a call at 251-973-9999. They're a family-owned business that is big enough to get the job done but small enough to care. Remember to support the local businesses that make your local podcast possible, and check them out at fortifiedroofingpros.com. All right, Hey Cap. This week's Hey Cap question comes from Noah Anderson. He says, Hey Cap, how has becoming part of a tagging program changed your fishing habits? What you think, Captain Richard? I know you guys do a lot of tagging. I'm curious to hear your answer, man.
I would say it hasn't really changed my fishing habits, but you do see some really cool trends. And I tend to think about like a school of speckled trout or a school of redfish. They kind of live with each other their entire lives in a school. And they obviously move around a lot. One thing I've really jumps out off the page at me with redfish is a lot of your slot size fish, 28 inches and smaller down to 16. Those fish can really tend to be homebodies. I know I've tagged a fish in the spring in an area around some oyster shells and, went through the whole winter and then recaptured the fish. Went through the whole summer. Now, hang on, let's see. I tagged him in the fall, I want to say in August, and then the winter time happened, and then I came back to the same little area in the spring and recaptured a red. I tagged I'm talking about within a 10-foot radius of where I caught the fish the first time, caught him in this exact same spot again. So what that tells me is that those fish are homebodies, and I've seen that with redfish several different occasions. And that's not to say they won't swim 90 miles away, because I've had recaptures happen with reds in Lake Pontchartrain, east of Pensacola, Biloxi, things like that. So they will pick up and swim. I think I had another red that I tagged way up in the Delta, and he got tagged west of Biloxi, got recaptured back over there. So the slot reds will move around. But as a whole, most of the trends tell me that they're homebodies. They find an area where they can forage and live, have plenty to eat, comfortable water temperature, that whole thing. They're going to live there until they feel the need to spawn, and then that's when they get in those bigger aggregate schools of those bull reds and start to live offshore and start roaming around doing the spawning activity. With speckled trout, and I think this just goes to show you about speckled trout fishing in general, why it can be very challenging. They move around so much. And the only times I've ever recaptured the speckled trout that I have tagged have been the next day or like within a week of tagging the fish the first time. I had an instance this year out on the Gulf Beach where I tagged, I think, 22 fish one morning, and I came back like 3 or 4 days later, and I ended up recapturing 3 of the 22 fish that I tagged 4 days before on one morning. So that school of fish was kind of hanging out, but that's not the trend that I see. 3 weeks later, that who knows where that fish is going to be. I had another instance where I tagged some fish in the golf course area back in March, like whenever spring break was. And a month later, the fish was caught on the north side of Dolphin Island down on the west end. So the fish was like in the Gulf almost right there by the golf course, and then either swam around the east end through the bridge or swam around the Gulf side to the west end. Who knows? But
swam around through the marina over there, through the ditch.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Who knows? And then, and I know, and the other thing too is, like I had a couple instances where I tagged some fish in deep water, like at the rigs, and there's a rig off Fort Morgan that I like to fish. I tagged a bunch of fish there one day. A fish got recaptured about a month and a half later at a different rig in the bay. So that fish was obviously living like the deep water life, or whatever you want to call it. Staying in that deep water.
Like that cooler water down there.
I guess so. Yeah, they like that chilly water. I've recaptured 3 trout around the Dolphin Island Bridge, which is kind of cool. Early in the year when they like to get up over those shells around the shoals, I did some tagging. After that kind of shut down, about a month or 2 later, I recaptured it at the bridge in deep water. And then I had another recap the other day where I caught a fish in deep water at the bridge and then recaptured him in shallow water about a quarter mile like south where I tagged him. So that just kind of told me that there's like a couple schools of fish around that bridge that just move up and down that bridge, kind of wander around foraging on whatever they can find. So it's kind of neat. I wouldn't say, like I said, like getting back to the actual question, hasn't taught me a whole lot, but it shows you trends, which are cool to see as far as the scientific side of it goes. The other thing I was going to get back to when I said the whole thing about speckled trout fishing being kind of tough, those fish move a lot. So if you go to an area where you've been catching them and you don't catch them, you need to get up and move and keep on covering as much water as you can till you start hitting on something again, because they could pick up and move in no time whatsoever. A school of fish will swim 3 or 4 miles down a beach, or from one reef to the next, or from one rig to the next. So you never know. You got to throw a lot of bread on the water to see where they are.
I'll tell you, Richard, something I just thought about just from what everything you just said and the tagging I did last fall. I haven't done as much since the spring, but last winter and fall, just now, I thought maybe it was just kind of coincidence, but listen to how many recaptures you've had and fish that you've caught again. It's kind of made me realize how quickly a fish is to turn around and bite again. And not that they're not going to eat, but I mean, they're eating a rig, a hook, lure,
very similar situation than they ate before.
Yeah, exactly. And it's showing that they're maybe a little dumber than we thought, but, but that's just pretty cool that you can turn around and go, I've done it. And obviously you've done it a billion times where you're catching a fish or multiple in the same day and turning around and catching them again a couple days later. I mean, that's really cool just to think that, you're catching fish right after, just a day or two later. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's not like a lake. It's not like a lake where, go ahead.
Right. You don't have any banks. It's not like a lake where they got to stay right there.
Fish isn't landlocked. He can go anywhere he wants. He can decide, hey, I got all this food out here, crabs and mullet and shrimp and everything. And, it shows that, Richard's in key with where these fish are because he's able to keep up with them and find them again. But it too shows that they're willing to eat again after being caught. It doesn't necessarily stop them from eating after they've had a hook in their mouth. They're not waiting 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 days or a month before they, take a bite at another bait. They're ready to go almost immediately after being caught.
Yep. I had a pretty cool story. You made me think about catching the same fish in a short amount of time. One time I was fishing Mobile River. It was either last fall, either late fall or into, I think it was like sometime in November. I caught the same fish in the Mobile River 3 times in 4 days. Caught a fish, tagged him, came back the very next day, No, came back 2 days later, caught the same fish again, put another tag in him, so now he's double tagged. Came back the next day and caught the same fish. The only difference was the third time when I caught him was he was about 150 yards down the bank from where I caught him the first time. So he'd moved a little bit, you know what I mean? Not a lot. That was kind of interesting, you know. Here he comes with 2 tags in him, you know, the little 16-inch fish. But, man, them rascals are hungry, man. I think that's what it is. They just get hungry, and you get the right period, right moon phase, and, man, they got to eat, you know what I mean?
Just foraging.
You get on a good pattern,
right.
they're there. I did that last year. I had 3 tags in the same fish in 3 days, and then my buddy Taylor caught him the 4th day and killed him.
That guy probably thought he won the damn lottery, huh?
That's right.
Man, I caught a fish with 3 tags in it, man. I wonder how much this one's going to pay out, huh?
Yeah, he was on the dock like fishing it, and he called me. He said, "Hey, man, we just caught this fish. It's got 3 tags." He's an inshore guide out of Carib, and he's like, I just caught this fish 3 tags. You think any of them's yours? I said, was it on this dock? He said, yeah. I said, yeah, that was my fish. I just tagged him the past 3 days. He's like, oh, he's in the cooler now.
Oh, Lord.
I was like, thanks for that.
Oh, yeah, got your little pet redfish out there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got him.
Well, that's a cool question, Noah. We appreciate that. Noah's going to get a prize back from the slick lure. Noah, make sure you email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com to redeem your slick lures. You guys make sure you send us your Hey Cap questions to that same email address, alabama@bestfishingreport.com. Check us out at our private group, Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, and Best Fishing Report, our big page with all of our other podcasts on it as well. Captain Richard, appreciate you being on, man.
Yes, sir. As always, thank y'all for having me and for doing what y'all do. The podcast is going a long way in the fishing community, and I know everybody appreciates it, including me. Dusty, good luck on the rest of your show. Good luck on the rest of your show getting broke in on being co-host. like Butch said, man, you get to see all the fun stuff on the backside, right? Sitting around and waiting on us to call.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah. I'm gonna be a little more urgent in the future now.
Well, I do got to tell you, Captain Richard, the reason I texted you earlier is you said you were booked up on Tuesday and Wednesday. I took a little time off work. I'm going to fish with Captain Bobby on Tuesday and with Captain Patrick on Wednesday, man. So I'm going to get to do a little tugging. I'm excited.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, be a much better week next week, Cap. I'll hit you up and give you a report.
All right, brothers. Y'all whack them.
All right, Captain Richard. You too, buddy. Keep whacking, and we'll talk to you soon. You guys check him out at www.coldbloodedfishing.com to book your trip with him. All right, Captain Dusty. Always good to hear from Captain Richard Rutland. Dude knows his stuff over here, man.
Yeah, he does. He's an expert for sure. It's really cool to see somebody that's in touch with his trade, and I respect it. He puts the time in the water. And
he loves it, man. He loves it. You can hear it in his voice. He gets fired up about it. When you fish with him, dude, he's like, I don't even know what to compare it to. He's like fishing with Gandhi. Dude is just in the zone. You know what I mean?
It's a passion.
He can hear the fish through his feet.
Yeah. There's some people, there's people that look at it as a job, and then there's people that look at it as a passion, and then it's obvious,
Yeah, cool. All right, man, we got one more left. Last but certainly not least, let's get the onshore report, Captain Dusty. Short thing fishing, man. What's been going on? What you been doing in the surf?
It's been, I'm not gonna say it's been great. Not a lot of people have been fishing. It's been August. Storm. Yeah,
and then after a storm.
After that storm, the water is dirty. It seems like it cleared up, yesterday afternoon and today as well. Still got some slight offshore winds, but starting tomorrow morning, we're going to have a north wind. Past few days, everywhere I fished, water's been dirty, and then the grass is bad in some areas, but it's fishable. Even in the areas where there are grass, it's still fishable. It's not to a point where you can't catch fish.
Where you been fishing? Just general area from, this to that?
I fished Orange Beach near Perdido Pass a few mornings, and then I fished west yesterday and around West Beach, and the grass was worse further west, it seemed like, than it was to the east.
Is it late for grass?
No, not really. I mean, I think that warm water keeps it blooming. It's a mixture of sargassum and the typical June grass, which is like the algae. Sure. And it doesn't come from anywhere. It just sprouts as that water stays warm. It grows within itself. And, sargassum, you get a big offshore wind, especially after a hurricane, it blows that stuff from all over the place. So yesterday morning was the worst as far as grass I've had since the hurricanes, but it was fishable. We still caught fish. We caught some juvenile pompano. We caught, of course, plenty of catfish. You're not going to not catch catfish after a storm. And that's just something that you got to you got to understand if you're using, unless you're using a big bait, but if you're using, sand fleas and shrimp and fish bites and anything small enough to put in a catfish's mouth, they're going to eat it. But in the mix, though, we did catch some whiting. We did catch, we call it remores, we call it stingrays, we call it catfish, ladyfish, we call it bluefish, we call it Spanish, a few keeper pompano throughout the mix. So, I mean, there's decent fish in there, but you got to remember, I'm sure we talked about this last week too, whenever you have a huge push of rough water and then all that dirty water comes in from the rain, catfish are not hunters or scavengers. So all that bait that's in the surf, the clams, the sand fleas, the ghost shrimp, everything else, they're in there, they're playing cleanup basically. They're coming in there and they're cleaning house and anything. I mean, they're out there by the bazillions. You can throw a line out past the second sandbar with a little piece of shrimp on it, and you don't have to close the bell. There's a catfish on there. So, they're there, but that's normal. Now, the ticket right now, in the next couple of days, it's going to improve tremendously, especially by the time this airs tomorrow. We're going to have a lot better conditions color-wise and wave-wise. That it's supposed to be down to a foot the next couple of days and even less than that here in a few. That's going to bring in, your pompano. We're getting that time of year. It's getting the fall. Your pompano start picking up in numbers a little more. The whiting bite gets great in the fall. Same thing with redfish. The same thing with flounder. Some of the best surf fishing we have is coming up, and you'll start getting it even in September right now. The main thing is just looking for clear water. It doesn't have to be Bahama clear. That's actually not necessarily ideal even, but just green, that pea color, green water.
Just Alabama clear.
Yep, Alabama clear. And that just means that it's not brown. If it's brown, it's chocolate. That means there's catfish for sure in there. There will be other things. Redfish aren't scared of it, and neither is a bunch of other stuff. But the catfish will outnumber everything else. So if you can find you some clear, decent water, try to get away from the grass, you'll catch fish for sure.
Let me ask you about that. Is there anything that you can do or not do to optimize your chances when the grass is thick like that?
So yesterday for us, we were fishing inside the sandbar. Now to the west, your sandbars are a little closer, so you'll get these deep pockets. I say deep, couple 2 or 3, 4 foot pockets, within 40 yards or 20 yards of you that you can fish up close with light rods. And the whiting will be in there, and you'll have the occasional redfish and juvenile pompano. And sometimes that grass will get in those pockets and stay, and sometimes it's not in there. It may be behind the sandbar. Fishing all your options, maybe throwing lures. It may be just fishing up close. It may be only fishing out far, but finding where those fish are and where the grass isn't is key. Sometimes just you get to a spot, plan A, you get all set up, you're pumped up, you throw out there, and it's like your line from your rod tip all the way to your sinker is pounds and pounds and pounds of grass. And you're like, well, crap.
Up.
Yeah, and you go ahead and decide, like, do I want to fight this or just go ahead and cut my loss and go somewhere else? You can move a mile sometimes and there's no grass, or you can even go, for instance, in Orange Beach, you may be east of the pass and the grass is bad. You go west of the pass and there's no grass. Same thing, Gulf Shores, Fort Morgan area, you may be at Gulf Shores Public Beach, go down to West Beach and there's grass, and then say, okay, I'm going to go down to Fort Morgan and, there's no grass. So sometimes you just got to be willing to move and pick up your stuff and don't be scared to get
relocate
in the truck and go back to the next spot.
What about bait right now, man? I know you said the catfish are really bad. Are they honed in on one particular thing? Are they crushing the fresh shrimp while fish bites are lasting a little longer? Or what you guys seeing as far as that goes?
That was definitely the case yesterday. I actually showed up armed with 2 bags of fish bites yesterday.
Armed.
Sand flea
You said armed.
Yep. I did not bring a cup of shrimp yesterday morning just because I knew better. My customers we fished east the day before. They wanted me to fish west with them. I assumed the water was going to be dirty, and it was. I had a couple shrimp left over from the day before, and the instance as soon as we put them out there, it was catfish. Fish bites, is actually what we caught our one pompano on yesterday, our little remores, our little Jack Crevalle, and the whiting were all on fish bites. Because it was able to, and not saying that catfish won't eat it, we caught plenty of catfish on a fish bite, but it was able to sit out there long enough without those little catfish gnawing it off, and then we have no bait on the hook.
Right.
That fish bite was able to be out there long enough for something to smell it, find it, and eat it. That was of any, something we actually wanted to catch.
It stayed on the hook long enough to where something else could find it other than a catfish.
Absolutely. And, sand fleas did good too. We were having to throw a little further out for them. or with the sand fleas to get any decent bites. And, the catfish, we're getting on them too. We did catch a couple decent fish, but the pompano earlier in the week on Sunday and Monday that we had caught were on sand fleas. So that, as far as bait, what's working changes all the time. There might be a period of time where it's ghost shrimp, and the next week it's sand fleas, and then the week after that you might not get touched on sand fleas. So you kind of, you're getting a pattern. You'll get used to something. You don't fish for 3 or 4 days. You go back out using the information that you used last. You're like, okay, last week this is what we were doing, but every day is a new day, and those fish have changed their diet in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's why this podcast is so valuable also, man. You got to stay, like we were talking about earlier off air, you got to keep your finger on the pulse, find out what's happening.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, man. Anything you want to add to the onshore? Anything sticking out to you before we get to the tip?
Yeah, I was going to say too, there's a lot of guys, seems like the redfish bite is picking up down Fort Morgan, which it's actually been decent all summer, it seems like, but there's grass and dirty water down there. But those guys that fish on there a lot are still catching fish, and they're going to be using bigger baits like blue crabs, mullet, cut whiting, stuff like that. A whiting is a fantastic cut bait that's very overlooked. Some of the biggest redfish I've ever caught. Actually, I take that back. The 2 biggest redfish I've ever caught, I've been on pieces of cut whiting. One of them was butterflied, and then one of them was actually just a little piece. And I say a little piece, I mean like maybe an inch by a half-inch piece. And this was on a light rig, little Carolina rig. So don't be scared to do that, especially once it gets colder and you start getting away from. I know it's still September. We're a ways from that,
right.
But little pieces of cut bait are a killer. And even if you get into schools of your whiting, which you have your typical Gulf kingfish, which is what we call a whiting, and you have your ground mullet or the northern and the southern kingfish. They also get out on the beach, especially in the fall. And especially if you get a little rain, they'll get out on the beach and mix in with the Gulf kingfish. And the Gulfs, your typical whiting, they're a little more picky on their baits. They're going to eat more shrimp and sand fleas, fish bites, a lot of fresh baits. But the southerns and the northerns, man, you can get one of them and cut it up, and you can sit there and just catch them all day long. They'll eat anything. Oh, yeah.
And drum.
Oh, yeah.
They'll eat it. Well,
Yep.
Cool, man. Let's, we got to get that tip from you. This week's tip, onshore tip, is brought to us by MDH Foundation Repair. If your home is experiencing foundation problems, MDH Foundation Repair has the best solutions to fix it right and fix it now. The problems you see are only going to get worse, so don't deal with inefficient, unqualified, and pushy salesmen trying to sell you overpriced foundation repair products. The professionals at MDH Foundation Repair will ensure you have a remarkable experience from the first meeting to the finished product. MDH Foundation Repair is redefining the construction industry and protect your most important asset, your home. Check them out at mdhfoundationrepair.com. What you think for an onshore tip this week, Captain Dusty?
Kind of touching back to the sand fleas, different baits all the time, like I was saying. Talk about sand fleas for a second. One thing you got to do is you got to have a rake. People try to catch them with their hands all the time, and you can do it. I've done it. I did it for years. Actually, I never owned a sand flea rake until the beach bum gave me his beat up one. It was nice of me. It had holes in it, falling apart. And I took some zip ties to it, and I still got it. I still use it. I was never a big believer in sand fleas for honestly years. It's kind of like other baits, and I won't get into that, but it's kind of one of those things. Like, I know guys use them, but I never had any issue catching a pompano on a fish bites or a piece of shrimp. This past year, more than ever, I've realized there are days where sand fleas are key. Mother's Day, I took my mom. We had always fished 3 or 4 rods or more. We had a couple pieces of shrimp, a couple pieces of fish bites, and the sand fleas were the only thing to get touched. And so as that morning went on, I expanded 2 rods of sand fleas to 3 rods to 4 rods to everything had on sand fleas. There's a point where it's all hands on deck for one bait. This is what's working. This is what we're doing. And then, of course, when the days that's like that, sand fleas are hardest to catch. Cold front that day.
Of course.
I'm sitting out there waist deep in cold water, freezing, trying to catch some sand fleas, and we're wearing them out. Back to that, catching sand fleas. Some days you want to look for it. Some days you can just obviously see them. The last video I did with Matt last week or a couple weeks ago, right there inside the pass, there were so many I've never seen so many sand fleas. You could fill dump trucks with the amount of sand fleas that were out there on the beach.
Wow.
And that's an incredible sight to see. But I feel like people get a little greedy with it, and they'll catch as many as they can and only use 10% of that. So, try to kind of, if you're in a situation where they're that thick, catch them as you need them. Get you 10 or 15 of them. If you need some more, go ahead and get you another 10 or 15 of them. Yeah, because they do. They don't, they don't freeze well. If you know how to blanch them right and all that stuff, that's great. But they don't freeze well if you just throw them in a freezer or just throw them in your cooler. But back to catching them, if they're not somewhere like that where they're just thick and you can go pick them up with your hands one by one, things I'll look for is when two waves are going to come up together, conjoin, and fall in a single spot. When they fall in that single spot, those sand fleas will just kind of get pushed in there, and that water's going to wash right over their back and it will expose them, and you'll be able to see them. Now, when you're looking at them and you're trying to sneak up on them, they can feel the vibration of your feet. You can't just go stomping up there. I'm a big dude. I weigh 260 pounds, got a size 15 shoe. So it's hard to be stealthy on anything, but you walk very slow.
Maybe get some moccasins. Get you some moccasins,
right.
like Scott Kennedy's got.
Yeah, I need to do something. But being stealthy, a slow approach to them, and watching, trying to have the sun in your face will help you get to them, get a little closer and catching them. As that wave comes up, you'll start your scoop, and then that wave will go down as you're scooping up and help wash that sand out of your basket and catch you some sand fleas. And another thing too, if you're not seeing them at all, sometimes go out a little deeper. There's usually a lip on the shoreline where that sand just kind of drops off a few inches. Sometimes scoop that lip, or even go out there at night and use a flashlight, and you'll be able to see their eyes. And that'll help you catch some more sand fleas for sure if you know you're going to need them.
That's awesome, man. Anything in particular about keeping them on the hook? I know there's certain tricks as far as ghost shrimp go, with the little floss and all that, but you just hook them how you hook them?
Yeah, what I do, everybody's got different ways, and I hear that a lot. Oh, sand fleas don't stay on the hook worth of crap. Well, I mean, neither does a piece of frozen shrimp or really anything else for that matter. Sand fleas, believe it or not, as far as something that stays on the hook, is one of my favorites because I have full confidence. If you have a good sharp hook, I'll put that joker on there and sling it as hard as I can, and I don't feel like it's going to fall off. Occasionally it will, but any bait will come off the hook at some point. It don't matter if it's live or dead or what. If you hold that sand flea on the bottom side, not the smooth side, but the bottom, they have a digger, which is that big, long V-shaped thing. If you hold that sand flea and try to hold that digger down, take your hook point, and this is where a sharp hook comes in handy. You can use an old dull circle hook if you want, but that's another reason why I like Kell hooks instead of a circle, and that's a whole nother argument for a different day.
Right.
I'll use that sharp hook point and use the force of the hook, not my finger pushing against that hook, but the force of the hook to go through that digger, straight through the body, in and out. I'm not going center mass. I'm not going on the other side. I'm not trying to thread it on there the best I can. I'm going through that digger and through the body and coming out the other side. It's something that probably easier explained with a picture
video
than it is video or a picture. Once you kind of see it, you're like, oh, okay. And I'm sure there's something on YouTube somewhere on how to hook a sand flea, but it does make a big difference on keeping them on. Until somebody showed me one day. I never liked using them. I'd sling them off all the time, and then once I saw how to do it, I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll try it again." So
I'm not sure if Matthew hooks them the same way, but I know on Best Fishing Report, I posted that video of you almost getting popped by lightning last week on our Best Fishing Report page, and I'm pretty sure he hooks one. I don't know if he hooks them the exact same way you do, but I think on that video he does that on there.
Yep. We hook them the same way for sure, and that was a crazy day for sure. We were using sand fleas. That was the bait to use that day.
Sketchy, man. That's another thing, man. All these storms around. I know we're kind of getting to the end of it now, the end of summer, but there's going to be some in September. You guys be careful fishing the beach or fishing inshore, fishing anywhere whenever those hot storms are around popping lightning, man. That's no joke.
Yeah, that was something different for sure. I've heard stories of it. We actually sat up there and waited. We watched the lightning show. It was the most lightning I've ever seen for hours. I mean, I got up, that morning at I think 3:30, and I thought somebody was flashing a strobe light outside, and this storm was 50 miles offshore, and I'm 12 miles inland. It was just going crazy, and we sat out there and waited for that storm to leave. It was probably 7:30 or 8 o'clock or later by the time we actually went back down to fish. And we thought all the lightning was over with, and we saw a couple little ones shoot all across the sky, and then we're standing there, and it was creepy. I mean, I felt that thing started vibrating in my rod, in my hand. So it was definitely something I've never experienced before, but
hopefully never again.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, that's an awesome onshore report. If folks want to get up with you and book a trip, what's the best way to get in touch with you, Cap?
Feel free to call or text me whenever at 678-897-0167. I try to get back with everybody as soon as I can. If at most it's going to be a couple hours, so I'll get back with you. And also have a Facebook page, Shore Thing Fishing, SHORE.
Awesome. That's a great onshore report, Captain Dusty. We appreciate that, man. But we got to do What Did You Learn? This week's What Did You Learn is brought to us by KillerDock. Today, I'd love to talk about a common form of dock dysfunction. It's called skinny dock, Dusty. Nothing to mess around about. Narrow finger piers, catwalks. I did suffer from skinny dock before I got a KillerDock. I have a boat slip with a little finger pier, but now it's not an issue. What could you do until now? Nothing. You guys go check out KillerDock.com. Their fish cleaning stations are offset, and it can enhance your skinny dock so that you can have fish cleaning station that you've always dreamed of. If you guys are suffering from skinny dock, check them out. The full line of natural dock enhancing fish cleaning stations at KillerDock.com.
I actually have a few buddies that have bought the.
It's a life changer.
I've told them because I didn't know about it to the podcast, and they've bought it, and they're like, man, it's just unreal, the detail, how much easier it makes life for them cleaning fish on their docks. It's pretty cool. It's a good way to show off in your neck.
Well, it is, and it's like, man, I mean, why not? Everything else that you spend a little bit of money on for fishing is thousands and thousands of dollars. People that think they're too much money, or I couldn't have a fish cleaning station on my dock if I didn't have one. Truthfully, I literally have a little finger pier next to my boat, and it's so offset. Everything drains straight off of it, and I still have my entire finger pier that I can stand on and clean fish. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah. So what did you learn this week, Butch?
Man, I'll tell you what stuck out to me, and I have written down over here on my handy-dandy notepad was, and I don't do a whole lot of inshore fishing, as everyone knows. I'm getting better. But the tagging and the amount of fish that were recaptured where you caught them. Both you and Richard said, it's not uncommon to catch the same fish 3 or 4 days in a row. That blew my mind. I don't know, like you said earlier, they're not in a pond. They don't have to eat the same thing over and over. They've seen that rig before, but there's a reason. I mean, they're hungry. They're foraging for some reason. So that's what I learned this week is that. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's, it just goes to show that those fish are, like I said earlier, somebody like Richard is in key with where those fish are, where they should be, and finding them and staying with them. And he's presenting baits to those fish again and again and again, and able to fool the same fish. To me, you could call it stupid or you could call it good. That fish may be dumb or the fisherman may be really good, however you want to look at it.
Right.
But it's cool to see that. I know I've had a few recaps, and so have a bunch of other people, but look at the caliber of fishermen that somebody like Richard is, how many fish they're catching and recapturing themselves, and then other fish that he's tagged being caught. It just shows that this research is doing something. It's showing us these migration patterns, how random it may be, whether they're moving a mile or 10 feet or 100 miles, showing where those fish are going. And on top of that, my opinion on it is it's if somebody catches a fish with no tag in it or two, they're going to be like, oh, this is cool. Let's take a picture. Let's write down this number. Let's report it. Let's let it go.
We hope.
Any bit of yeah, we hope. Unless they're my group of friends, then probably not. But
they want that jewelry.
Yeah, exactly. They hang the tags on the wall right above the frying station. But,
that's right.
But yeah, so
we all. Hey, Dusty. Hey, we all have Garbone friends. All right, it's all right.
No, yeah, I've been there, done that. But but yeah, no, it's cool for sure to just to think that even if it's half the fish that get recaptured, that they have a chance of somebody letting them go. I think in today's fishery that's going to go a long ways, because there's a lot of fishing pressure in our area over here. Any help we can get helps for sure.
Absolutely, man. You learn so much from those recaptures, whether they're in the same spot or not. Like Richard was talking about, a lot of fish that migrated a ton. I just think it's cool to learn it. I would let them go just to see, where the next recapture was, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'd be cool to think about. We go over in Louisiana and duck hunt, and some of those fish we catch. Yep. Like, man, I caught this fish swimming right here in front of me. Could have been in Orange Beach 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
It's wild to think about. And that's the beauty of the Gulf and all that, is how there's no fences. There's no just like the sharks on the beach thing. I mean, there's no fences. There's nothing stopping these fish from going where they want to go.
Agreed, man. Cool question, Noah. We appreciate that. Make sure you email us to get your slick lure package. Captain Dusty, co-host, man. Co-host. Yeah, I like it. I enjoyed it, man. I'm glad you were a part of the show this week.
I enjoyed it a lot. It was a good time.
All right, folks. That's going to wrap it up this week. You guys, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like us to email you the podcast each week, head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show each week. You guys keep whacking them. We'll see y'all next week.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Daycool Heating and Air, your home performance specialists. Contact them at 251-260-3858 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com. License number AL07028. And also test calibration. If your diesel has low power or is consuming excessive amounts of fuel, these are common signs that your turbocharger may need to be rebuilt. No matter if you're running a diesel in your boat, tractor, or truck, Test Calibration can help you. Contact them at 800-822-0057 or visit them online at testcalibrationdieselandturbo.com.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo Depaola, the Coastal Connection with EXP Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo Depaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
And also Fishbites, scented baits without the sting. Check them out at fishbites.com.
Also brought to you by Advanced Transmission in Spanish Fort. Give the professionals a call who have been trusted on the Gulf Coast for over 25 years at 251-626-6061 or check them out online at www.advanced-transmission.com. Also brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at CCAAlabama.org.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by me, Captain Dustin Hayes with Short Thing Fishing. The best way to reach me is at 678-897-0167 or Facebook at Short Thing Fishing, and I'll help you out. We'll go surf fishing or inshore.